everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Okay, so a while back I nearly completed this custom one-off project, this 50 CFM compressor beast. So when I say one-off, that's clear to be seen with these larger motors and these larger pumps. So I have been extremely busy with my PhD research since April, alongside Asimo's monument at the start of the year, and the e-bike project that I've recently uploaded to my channel. So it's been hard to find time for all these other projects. So this project build came before Asimo's grave monument and has been used for it and throughout all my other projects since. The compressor has proven to be really reliable, very reliable. It's the biggest single phase reciprocating piston compressor in the world at 50 CFM. So the motors, combining them together, are 11 horsepower, 8 kilowatt. It takes under 2 minutes to fill up from an empty vessel. So in part 3.3, I demonstrated the fill time to be 1 minute 56 seconds. So I think it was 56 seconds or 58 seconds. So that was from an empty vessel, and I had the PSI, or the pressure of the vessel, set at 150. So 150 PSI. The size of the vessel is 270 litres, and with those variables inputted into the fluid dynamics formula or any calculator online, this beast proves to be 50 CFM, as I initially stated in the very first video, or first videos. So see the video description for this. It takes less than 30 seconds to get from 110 PSI to 150 PSI. So once the vessel drops pressure, the compressor soon builds up to 150 PSI again using both pumps within 30 seconds or a wee bit less. So I had to include that there because I have been getting comments under the videos about how this compressor is not 50 CFM. Like, I just don't understand how some of these people can't grasp that. Some of them are genuine and some of them are haters, envious, and well, you're gonna get it. So just to point out one more time, these are two-stage pumps. They are not your typical standard single phase pumps that you would get on a compressor that you would purchase. So I don't have the pumps, the old pumps anymore, because I give them away or sold them. But just to reiterate, these are two-stage pumps. The data sheet states 25 CFM. 25 plus 25 is 50. If that's not clear enough, do look at my calculations that I have left in the description. I know some of the people have been genuine about this, but some of them have been a bit, I've worked on compressors all my life, and that's not 50 CFM and all this nonsense. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can slide on people like that. I don't need that in my channel. So moving on here now anyway. So today I will be following on with part 5 of this custom project by creating a stainless steel guard for the rear end of the compressor. So this may be one guard or two guards or 2 pieces, 4 pieces. Who knows until I get to the stage in a moment. So if I was to maybe make the guard out of one piece, that guard would need to slide down both sides of the 4 pulleys. So let's say if I went to place my hand in this way, I wouldn't get my hand stuck in the pulley or the belt, or this way. Or let's say, well, obviously I've been using this compressor as I've mentioned. So let's say I go to move the compressor like this, which I nearly have done, to be honest, when the compressor's running. Well, We don't want to be losing any fingers or even the arm. We don't want to be losing anything. So I'm going to get this started here now, and hopefully it goes well. So I forgot to mention a couple of things there just before I get started. So if you want to see anything to do with the tumbling of this vessel, the attachment of all the accessories, the pumps, the motors, the valves, or the plumbing of the pumps to the vessel, or even just the full build process, there's 6 or 7 videos already on my channel. So I'm just going to bring this piece of stainless into view here. So here we go. Let's get started. Let's get straight back into this project. So that will be manufacturing a beautiful, slick and effective stainless steel guard using this 8x4 304 grade stainless steel mesh. So the profile of this stainless mesh is 3 inches by a half inch. So you aren't able to get your fingers through the holes here. So I probably will keep a distance of around, say, 25 mil between the mesh and the pulley at the back, just in case somebody with smaller fingers or a child puts their fingers through the holes when the compressor is running. So that's it, we're going to get started here now. So I'll sit this down again. So, do you enjoy? Okay, so I've turned the compressor around towards me here. So what I'm going to do here now is give a quick discussion on where I want to place the guard and the shape of the guard. So as you can probably tell, I'm stating guard as in one guard. So I have decided to create one guard and not 2 guards for this compressor. I just think it'd be much easier. I think it would be maybe tidier too, because how close these 2 platforms are, these 2 pumping stations. So there's 2 ways I can do this. I can make a guard that's square, or I can make a guard that's more complex. When I say more complex, I mean, well, rather than having the guard coming up like this and then going this way, plumb with the, or parallel to these platforms, obviously at this height, I could slope it and sort of follow the guard with the pulleys. So that is the more complex way. And me being me, I'm going to select that way rather than the square looking way, which will be very obstructive looking. Wouldn't look right in my opinion. Okay, so that's the idea, and then the more I'm talking about it here now, I'm thinking I might just go back and do 2 guards. I haven't made my mind up now, to be honest. I think it might be better actually to make 4 pieces and have a backing plate. When I say a backing plate, I'm talking about a back panel, a back sheet of mesh, and then have this front piece fixing onto it and keeping it to the same shape as the pulleys. So imagine now if I was to offset a line from this belt out 2 inches, right around the belt. So if this pulley is 14 inches, which it is, we want the guard, well, an inch would maybe be okay, but I'm just going to maybe go a wee bit more. Say 2 inches. So if I had a guard now that surrounded the belt, at an offset of around 40 mil would be grand, and the same with this side. But if we look at this point, we've only got around 75 mil. So that would leave me around maybe take it there around 35mm offset from the belt. So hopefully that makes sense. I think it would be tidier looking to keep the guards separate now on both stations. I think it would look better now just as I'm looking at it. I've only decided that here on this video clip. I thought making the guard out of one piece here would be easier, but it would be very clumsy, very obstructive looking. So I'm going to go outside here now. The rain has started, so I'll wait till it fares and I will get started here. So again, this pulley is 14 inches diameter, so the radius is 7 inches from here to here. This pulley is 8 inches, so from this point to here is 4. It's 200mm as far as I mind. So yeah, I'm going to go outside here now and the rain stops. But first, just to reiterate here, the guard that I will be making now will have a backing panel with mesh, and it will slide down. The backing panel will slide down through 2 cuts at the bottom of the backing panel, not at the top obviously. Then we will mount this outer face, the outer bit of mesh to the inner bit of mesh. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'll go outside here when the rain fares. So this should look well when it's finished. And finally I am getting there. It's been, how many months has it been now since I done this project? Must be touching 6 more, maybe 8. Okay, so I have come up with a plan here. So what I'm going to do here is make a template. So I'm going to bolt the template to this larger pulley, and we're going to cut around this boss on the driving pulley. And then we're going to mark it when it's in position. 30mm from the pulleys, or from the belt out. So 30mm because the distance in between these 2 pulleys is, what do we see? 70mm, so that would leave 10mm in between the 2 guards. So here we go. We'll get this drilled. We'll turn it round. No, that way's okay. So we're going to drill this. And we're going to place the bolt back in. Like so. So that's the weight that big lorry passes. That's it bolted to the big pulley. What I need to do here now is make sure it's lined up and then cut around this point. Doesn't have to be neat, it just needs to be enough to allow this piece of plastic to touch the driving pulley, the edge, so I can mark it. There we go. So now I can mark this at the back, and then we can measure out 30mm, and then we can cut it into a template. So we'll just cut it down here. We'll cut it roughly for the meantime. Okay, so the camera is in an awkward position here. So this will be quite tricky to demonstrate marking the entire template. So for this clip, I'm only going to mark a small section on both pulleys. Then I'm going to do the rest off camera. So with the piece of plastic in position on both pulleys, need to make sure it doesn't slide on this pulley, because if it slides on this pulley, it means the mark's going to be off at this point. So now using this 30mm box section as a spacer, sitting it on the pulley, and if I run this box section with the marker around the pulley, this is quite tricky, I will then have a mark 30mm away from the belt, if that makes sense, or from the pulleys. Same thing. So I don't want to make a mess of this here, so I'll do a wee bit. Oh, there we go. So if I continue that mark right around this pulley and the motor pulley, then we can join the lines once we get past the highest point on the pulley, if that makes sense. So here's the pulley, and here's where my guard will sit. So hopefully you can see that. So now, moving on to the motor pulley. So same thing again, marking it as we go round. Oh, banging the mic off the pulley there. There we go. So there's another mark. So I'm going to do this off camera because it's quite tricky, as you can see. Okay, so I had to revert back to my original idea, which was marking around the pulleys, trying to hold this spacer in position when the template was on the compressor, the piece of plastic. It was impossible. So what I'm going to do here now is mark out these two lines, the two straight lines. So these are the lines which mimics where the belt is on the pulleys. So I need to be sure when I make my guard that I am 30mm to the side of the belt, or to this line that I'm going to place here. So here we go. So where these lines start to dip is where I mark from pulley to pulley. So that is from here to here. Oh, my fingers. And that is from here to here. Okay, there we go. So what I need to do here now is basically go around this perimeter, this line, and mark 30mm out. That's the best way to do it. If I had something, well, this here's 7 inches from here to here. If I had something a little bit bigger, it would be better, but I don't have anything. So I'm just going to mark it out here and draw the lines. I'll look for something first and see if I can find anything. So I need something at 8 inches, add on 30, which is just over an inch. It's going to be very hard to get something. So I'll just mark it out here. Okay, so now the two curves, or the two radiuses. So you can see how this line is starting to line up with this one, the line that I placed, the curved line that I placed on the pulley using this spacer. So what I'm going to do here is look for something at the right diameter. If I can't get nothing, I'm just going to mark it out. Okay, so I have the template trigged to this piece of timber, and I have this small ruler with a small hole placed in it to form or create this mark. So here we go. Perfect. So now on to the bigger one. So this ruler was only £1, so the wee hole in it, not doing any harm. So that screw being the centre of the pulley in the motor. So we'll do the same now this side. Okay, same thing again. We have a ruler with the scale completely gone. So this is a ruler that I use for mixing paint. So it's scrap anyway. So I have bored a hole in it, or drilled a hole in it at this point at 230 from the centre of the screw to the hole. So here we go. Keeping the ruler tight towards me. Perfect. So that's it complete. We'll cut this now and then we'll get the mesh cut outside. Good job. So the radius at this point from the guard to the screw is 230 mm, and at the motor side it is 130 from the screw to the guard. Good job. Good job. All done. So we'll cut these out later on, but first we'll move on now to cutting the mesh. 4 panels, 2 for each guard, back end panel and a front panel. Okay, so I have the template ready. I now want to place one mark, one important mark on the template. So when I go to cut the mesh, that the mesh sits parallel to the top of the vessel or the top of the platforms here. So basically what I'm saying is when I cut the mesh and I place it into position, I don't want the reel, the bars running off, running on an angle or running downhill. So what I'm going to do here is, for one final time, I'm going to remove this bolt and I'm going to place the template back on this side. So this is really important, this mark, or this line. Me being me, I'm really fussy. So with the template in position, you mightn't be able to see that, but the black mark on the inside, I can see through this yellow piece of plastic, the template. The black mark is lining up to the pulleys as it should. And we have a 30 mm gap right around the two pulleys and the belt. So the idea is here now to slacken this again. And what I'm going to do is place this cord on the top of the bolt. So the top of the bolt's important here. And I'm going to pull it to this station, this pumping station. The reason I'm not going to the motor is because the motor is sitting lower than the pump. So I'm going right over to this one, this pump, and slacken on the bolt. And we're going to just pull this cord tight, like so, to the top of the bolt. It's important that I'm at the top of the bolt of both sides. And I'm going to jam this cord onto the ground here, and I'm going to take 2 marks. So I'm going to take a mark here. Okay, I'm going to take one there. And what I can do now is draw a line, a straight line. And that line means, because these 2 pumps are identical, it means that line is parallel to the compressor, or plumb to the 2 platforms. So the mesh will look nice and straight, parallel, and the upright parts of the mesh, the bars, being perpendicular to the cord. Good job. So we'll get this line marked now that we've got the 2 points. So we have reference point 1 and reference point 2. Okay, so there's my reference line. So that's really important, as I say, for the mesh, the orientation, the setup of the mesh when I go to cut it. Okay, so the template is finished. I have these 2 peek out holes. So peek through holes, I'm going to talk about them in a moment. But first, I just want to mention here now, I have to now centralize this template to the sheet of mesh. So if you look at this rod running this way, or this stainless bar, and this stainless bar, I need to be sure that this large circle, this diameter, is equally placed from this bar to this edge and from this bar to this edge. So hopefully that makes sense. And I also have to make sure that this line, this reference line, is running parallel to this bar or to the mesh. I also need to make sure that the template is equally placed from here, these points, so that when I go to cut the template, I don't end up being stuck in the middle of a bar, if that makes sense. So I'll bring the camera up close here and just give a wee quick demonstration of what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is when I go to cut the mesh, or when I go to mark the mesh, I don't want to be marking the template at this point. So if you imagine when I go to cut this mesh, this edge, all these wee edges of the bars will be nice, clean cut. When I get to this point, because of the bar that's perpendicular to these ones, this will end up like a hatch-up job. So it would be very tricky. Well, not tricky, but it would look very out of place compared to this point when I go to assemble the guard. So if you can imagine, if I go to weld these bars to the bit in the middle, which I'm going to call the spacer, when I get to this point, it would look kind of rough, but at this point it would be very neat. Sorry, my voice is going there. So what I'm going to do here now is going to mark out 4 of them. Well, actually I'm going to do one at a time. So again, it's important that this edge, the gap at this point, is equal to the gap at this point. So bringing this over. So what I've done here is I've cut out these peek through holes, and I can set this template equal or center to these points by measuring from this line, this reference line, to 35mm at this point. And the same goes for this point, so that keeps the template square. Keeps this line parallel to the mesh. So that's important. So when I go to look at the guard on the compressor, it looks plumb. And these bars aren't running uphill or downhill. So we're going to move on here now. I'm going to start marking these out. But one last time, it's important that this template doesn't end up at this point looking like this or like this, because it would look kind of rough when I go to weld it together. So that's just thinking ahead here. So I'll set this up, we'll mark it out, and then we'll move on to the 3 other ones. So the spacer part in the middle. So first things first, there will be 4 of these cut out. There will be 2 at the front and 2 at the back. The 2 at the back are the backing panels, and they will have slots running down from the center of these large circles. So if you can imagine the shaft of the pump at this point, there will be a hole a wee bit bigger cut, and then there will be 2 lines running perpendicular to this reference line here. And the same goes for the motor. There will be a slot or a gap so that I can slide this piece of mesh down between the pumps, the pump and the motor and the pulleys. So we'll get this marked out now and we'll get it cut. Okay, so that is the template lined up. So this line is now parallel to these lines running this way. So the last thing I need to do now is make sure that this template is centered from this edge to this bar and this edge to this bar. Okay, so that's it. So what I can do now is place a wee mark here. So this mark now will be used to line this template up on the other 3 faces. So this mark at this point keeps the template in the same position, the same equal gap at this point when I go to mark out the other 3. So I'm just going to double check this again. Okay, I can start marking this now. making sure to push the template down and carefully marking each one of these bars. Time consuming. Making sure that the template doesn't move. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to mark the other three off camera because that is time consuming. So you won't be able to see the marks, but they're there. So I'll get this cut now. Okay, so I'm back inside here. The weather is taking a turn for the worst. So the next task that I need to do now for this, well, these guards, is the stainless mesh part that follows the perimeter of the outside face. So if you can imagine now, if I was to slice this in two places and slide this down here in this position, that will be the backing panel. The front panel will have another piece of mesh attached to the perimeter, like so, and it will completely surround the perimeter, so it's very tricky for me to put my fingers on, or anybody to put their fingers on near the pulley or the belts. So obviously at this point there's going to have to be a wee small cutout where the air enters the vessel from the pump at this point and at this point at the two platforms. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to go outside and cut these parts, these pieces of mesh that will surround this front face, well, the two front faces. I should point out the perimeter of this face, the perimeter of this template even, is 1.8 meters, so 1800 millimeters. So the problem is here now, the sheet, the width of the sheet is only 1250 millimeters. So I need to add on 550 mil to the width of the sheet twice because there's two guards. So I'll bring this up nice and close here. So there's another thing I want to mention here, a couple of things. I have decided not to cut these little pieces on the mesh tight to this edge of this bar because I don't want to mark it. So that's me being fussy again. I don't want to see the grinding marks on this bar. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a wee spacer between the cutting disc and this bar on both sides of this part that I'm about to form here, about to make. So I have to cut it first, then I have to shape it to match this face. So this face might be hard to see in the camera there, but if I get the template. So the template, this piece of mesh, the 4 pieces of mesh, still need to be modified or tweeted to this template. They're not far away, but a wee bit out, a wee bit too big. So as I say, I'm going to use a packer such as this stainless bar, and this stainless bar will be set on the stainless mesh outside that's currently in the rain, and I'm going to run the cutting disc against this stainless bar instead of marking the mesh with the cutting disc. So that's me being fussy. Those wee bits then sticking out will be 3mm from this bar, so that's grand, because that means then the bars running uphill from this face can be welded directly to these bars. But the problem is, when I shape this into the curve, especially at a tight radius, these bars then won't line up. The upright bars on the mesh won't line up with these ones. That will be clear when the guard's complete, but can't do nothing about that. So, have to wait till the rain fares here, and then we'll go back outside and cut these 1, 2. Might get away with 3 pieces, but I might just cut 4 anyway and join 2 of them together to make the 1.8 times 2. So it'll probably be, hopefully it will be today, but I don't want to take the camera out in the rain. So hopefully it fares off soon. Okay, so I used a 3mm stainless bar this side. This one. So that's to allow for the 3mm excess, these little bars protruding past this stainless bar. So at this side now, I'm going to use a 2.4mm stainless rod, welding rod. I don't have a 1.6mm, but a 2.4 will be okay for this. And if I need to, I don't want to be marking the stainless bar, as I say, but I don't want them sticking out too far either. So this will be the end that meets the other guard at this point. So the end with the smaller stubs. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's one cut. I'm now going to proceed on here and cut 3 more. And then we'll tidy them up, ready for welding. Good job. On to the third one now. Okay, so what I've done here now is, rather than keep these little bars protruded over this bar, the bar perpendicular to it, I want to keep them tight. I think it would be much easier to assemble a guard when I go to welding it, rather than these pieces being in the way. So I'm going to complete the other, what do we see, 3 pieces. So the 2 sides, have to cut these all nice and neat without marking this bar, the edge of this bar, if that makes sense. The reason I don't want to mark it is because it would look very rough when the guard is welded together. So I'm going to move over now. Well, I'm going to complete these ones with the grinder, and then we're going to move over to the bench grinder to finish them off and take it from there. Okay, so I have decided here to move up to the bigger sander. It's much more effective for removing these little burrs. So just giving a wee demo here before we move on to the faces. Good job. So all these little bars now are plumb to this bar that's run horizontal. So they are perfect, ready for the next stage. So we'll move on to the faces here now. These 4 pieces are complete. Okay, so I'm now ready for the next stage. The final stage before I start polishing using the burnisher in the garage. So I'm going to bring the burnisher outside. So first things first, I want to just touch on something here. So the 4 sidewalls sitting to the left of me are complete. The 4 faces now need tweeted. They need brought up to my standard, a high standard. I'm not happy with this template, so I'll just touch on that first. So when I initially cut the sheet of mesh, I used this template. So the way I created this template was, well, I fixed it to the pump, as you know, and I set a line offset from where the belt would be positioned to give me an idea on the type of guard that I wanted, the shape. So this mark, or this edge of this template should be 35 mil, I think it was 35 mil or thereabouts, away from the belt, which is this inner black line. So what I'm going to do here now, or what I have done, is I've created a new plan. And this new plan follows a 3D model that I've created. So I've extracted a drawing from a 3D model that matches this template. So obviously, because this is a piece of plastic and I've used a permanent marker, it's very hard to get this perfect. And it's very hard to get these pieces of stainless mesh perfect, or to match this, the 4 of them. So I'm going to now reject this, disregard it, and I just want to touch why I'm doing this. So if you can imagine, when I have a guard that has these sidewalls welded on to the front face of the guards, so there will be a back face and then there will be a front face off the 2 sides, the 2 pumping platforms. So I want, forget that car passes, I want these guards interchangeable. So say I took the 2 of them off, I want to just pick the other one up and put it on if need be. And I also want the, what do we see here? I'll just use this one. I want the front face matching the back face to a T. So very exact. So what I'm going to do here now is going to bring this plan into view and I'm going to discuss what I've done, okay? And then we'll get rocking. Okay, so hopefully that one's not interfering with the mic because it's quite windy out here. So what I have done here is I have taped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of A4 paper to this MDF sheet. So I have these all lined up using a grid that I have created on the drawings. So the grid's there to pinpoint where the drawings need lined up to give me exact measurement or exact dimensions of this outline. So this outline matches that yellow template. So what I'm going to do here now is bring the camera up close and we'll touch on this a bit more before I get started. Okay, so here we have the new drawing. So hopefully you can see that nice and clear. So what we have is a fine line. So this line is set very fine so that I can have these pieces of mesh up to a high standard, a high precision. So I'll just show this here now. So I think I have these done roughly at the minute. When I say roughly, they are perfect, but they're just not up to my standard, as I say. So if you look down there now, you can see how those bars are all lining up to the outline on the sheet or the plan. So as I say, these 7 sheets of paper are used because I don't have an A1 printer or an A2 printer or even an A3. So they are accurate because I've measured from this point to this point and I went back to the model. So I've done this with all my projects that I make like this. So I'm going to put the camera on the stand and I'm going to start tweeting these pieces of mesh to match this plan, and then we're going to move on and hopefully we can get this, well, I don't know if it's looking good. I don't know if I'm going to get this guard or these guards done in one video. So we'll see how it goes here. We'll keep our luck. So if you look at this now, you probably will think it's perfect. It's not far away. So what I'm going to do now is basically use the sander with an 80 grit abrasive sanding pad. So as you can see, it's looking good, but I just want to remove the burr on the end of the bars. So these three other pieces are done too. So I'll set these tools on the ground. So these three pieces are done too. So what I'm going to do now is sand them, bring them up to spec, up to this line. I should point out that when I created this drawing, that I set the line, the outline, very fine so that I can increase the precision of the faces. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to put the camera on the stand. I'm going to start tweaking these. A wee small demonstration, and then we're going to move on to polishing them, and then we're going to go inside and start assembling things. Assembling the guards. So looking good. Okay, so I have my air fed mask or my respirator ready. One thing I want to discuss here before I move on, just the process of what I'm doing. So this is an 8-inch or 200mm bench grinder. I have adopted it with these spindles, and I've added these polishing wheels. So this is like a cloth, a very light wheel. This wheel is more aggressive. This is the wheel that I will be using now to polish these sidewalls and the faces. Only the edges. Okay, so this wheel is a sisal wheel. It's an aggressive polishing wheel or mop. This compound is black compound, so it's the coarse compound. So if you were going to be bringing something up to mirror, you would start off with a coarse and then you would move to medium to fine. Green or pink being fine. So this is black. I will only be using black for this job. So I'm going to get started here with this demonstration. I'm not going to do the whole thing because there's so much work on it. But I will do a demonstration of this sidewall, polishing this edge, and the orientation I hold this with respect to this wheel. And the same goes for these faces. So I need to be careful of this because you don't want to be bending these bars or putting too much heat into it. So temperatures here can rise to 600 degrees. It's a very, can be a tricky process depending on what you're doing or what you're polishing. So here we go, we're going to get started here. Put the mask on. I'm going to switch over to the mic on the camera because I don't want to wreck this one. Okay, so I've just brought the camera up close here to do one final clip just to show you or show yous the burrs at this point being removed. So the wee fibres off the wheel are going all over the camera at this stage, so I don't want to do too much here. So burrs here at this point. Go on. So I'll do the rest off camera here, and the next stage will be hopefully the welding stage. Assembling the guards. Good job. Okay, so on to the next step here. That step is building a jig to help form the guards. So the sidewalls. So it's to help with the assembly of the front guard, mainly. So if you want to see more in-depth polishing of these stainless pieces, do get a look at the live streams that I have uploaded on my channel, so they are more in-depth. I only touched on the polishing on this video because the video will be far too long. So what I'm going to do here now is form or manufacture a simple jig that I can pull these sidewalls around to match the faces that I have just formed for the two guards. So what I'm going to do exactly is have a lower base and an upper, an upper platform, and in the middle we'll have a packer to space these two pieces of timber apart at approximately 80 mm to match the depth of this sidewall. So I have the plans printed out here, so I'm going to get them here. We have a lot of flies that are attracted to this plywood. I don't know what's in it. It must be some sort of, I don't know, glue or something. So what I'm going to do here now is glue this plan. Well, there's another one on the van too, to this one and this one. And as I say, I'm going to pack these two pieces of timber or plywood apart at approximately 80 mm. I think it'll be 80 mm bang on, the depth of this. So I will pull this around the two pieces of timber. Two pieces because we want the sidewall square. We don't want it to be pulling just at one end of it. So hopefully that makes sense. So if I glue this now to this timber, this plywood, and the other one here. So just to point out, this shape, this unique shape, matches the faces that I have just formed, only it has an offset of 2 mm to the inside. So that's to allow for the thickness of this bar. It's to, do you know the ends of the faces that I have just cut? I want them ends sort of in the center of this 3 mm bar. So really I only needed 1.5 mm, half of 3 mm, but I just went an extra half a mil to allow for just air, to allow a wee bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to glue these now. I'm going to get the other one. Hopefully we don't get no flies stuck underneath it. So the glue that I'm using to do this is basically like a PVA glue, Mod Podge sealer glue finish. So we'll do that now. So basically I'm going to just sort of soak the timber in the area where I'm going to be cutting with the jigsaw. Don't have to do everything because, just to point out, these 7 sheets of paper are glued together this time using Pritt stick rather than tape. So that's the, so if you can imagine me coming along here with the jigsaw, we don't want the paper lifting at the top. So hopefully that makes sense. So we'll glue this now. But get the idea as I go here. Okay, so we don't want this to be too wet. So I'll wait till it goes off here. I don't want to crinkle the paper, wrinkle it. So I'll just wait a wee moment here. Do a wee test. Good job. Okay, so it's been 3 days since I glued the plans to both pieces of plyboard. So what I'm going to do here now is cut the two of them out, the two platforms, the lower and upper, using that jigsaw. Then we're going to move on to the sanding stage to leave them nice and neat. So I want both of these pieces of boards, or both platforms, identical. The lower base and the upper platform. So we'll get rocking here. We'll bring the camera nice and close. We'll do one at a time, obviously. Okay, so I have the two pieces cut and sanded. So my next step now is creating three spacers to keep the top platform and the base apart. So approximately 80 mm from the bottom face to the top face. So we'll cut these now. So the thickness of the base and the top base is 12 mm. This bit of timber sitting here measures 56 mm, so that gives us 80 mm. So the plan is to have one in the centre, one on the outside, and one at this point. So I'll go ahead here. So something like that. So I'm going to now pre-drill the holes. Now we're going to screw this together. Get it glued up first. So making sure that the two pieces of timber or plywood are lined up here. And I'm going to pre-drill the holes. So just to point out, the plans are still at the back side. Doesn't matter. There we go. One. This one now. And this one. Okay, so I need to make sure all these screws are flush. So I'm just going to countersunk these holes too when I'm at it. Okay, there we go. Ready for the top platform now. That glue's alright. First things first, I'm going to screw this onto a piece of plywood first. So that when I pull the sidewall around it, it sits flush or sits to the bottom at this point. So hopefully that makes sense. Couple of screws will be alright. Okay, so I decided to glue this to this base. Just in case the screws let go. Hello! Okay, so I'm ready for the top platform now. So the holes are pre-drilled. I'm just going to countersunk them. Not really important at the top here, but there we go. So the next step now is using, well, this glue again. But this is an important step here now. So this top base needs lined up to the bottom. Well, the top platform needs lined up to the bottom base. So I'm going to use the square to do that. and I'll go round it at this point, and you can see there, if I move the camera back here, I'll move it down a wee bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, it's in position now, it's looking good. So I have decided to go ahead and glue it because, well, I need to be quick because our glue will go off today, very warm. I think it's important that I glue it here. One shot, one chance. Go off quite quick. Looks good. So if I push the square into the bottom base, the bottom platform, until the top one stops moving. Okay, I'm ready to screw here. Perfect. So screw up. Just double check it. That's perfect. So we'll start in the center. So those wee dry linen screws are quite easy broke. If you notice, I broke one on the other side. Doesn't matter. Okay. So that's a complete, ready for the welding stage. So I'll just pull it out of the sunlight. So there we go. So that sort of mimics the area of the guard, this perimeter, or the volume shall I say, because it's spaced. So into the garage now and get this guard welded together, finally. Okay, so for this final task here, I am removing any polish that's left over on these side rails or side walls. So this is important for the weld process because the polish tends to interfere with the weld itself on anything that I've welded before. So hot water and a bit of fairy liquid to do this. So it's important here at this rail where I'm going to be welding that all the polish is removed. So it's looking good there now, that one. So we have a mirror finish now on each one of these bars. Time consuming. So on to the two bigger ones here now. Okay, so I nearly forgot, I need to clean these four faces too. Specifically at these points where the face will be welded to the side walls. Just removing all the polish, any polish that sits on the bar still. The cleaner the better, as I say, for the welding process. Making sure not to stab myself because these are quite sharp, especially this one. This bar, because of the tight radius. Okay, so I'll do the other two off camera. The two for the back of the guards, the two nearest the pumps and the motors, the two that won't be welded. Well, they won't be welded to the sidewall. So the great thing about stainless here is it won't rust. Well, not round the fresh water. Salt water will be different now. So I'll let this dry off, ready for the assembling stage. And I'll do these two off camera, the cleaning of them. So as I say, these two are for the back wall. So finally I am at the interesting stage. So this will come quite fast compared to all the work beforehand there, all the polishing and the cutting. So from this point forward, it is basically the assembly of the two guards using this jig. So what I'm going to do here now is weld one of the shorter side walls to one of the longer side walls. So I have to do this for the two guards. So basically I'll be laying it out like this, and I will be measuring the gap in between the two adjoining bars to make sure that that gap is the same as the rest of the mesh. So hopefully that makes sense. So in between these two bars measures 10mm. I need to be sure to cut these bars to keep this gap in between the two pieces identical. So I'll bring the camera up here nice and close and we'll get into this. Okay, so one final thing before I move on here, before I start assembling this. So I have marked this jig top and bottom. So that refers to where the guard will sit when it's mounted to the compressor. So if you can imagine this being the pulley, the large pulley of the pump, and this being the small pulley of the motor. This is the right hand side and this is the left hand side. So basically this is, if you can imagine me sliding the guard on over the two pulleys in this position. So the reason I have marked them this way is because, do you see when I weld the two pieces together, we're only going to have an equal gap at one end of the large band that I'm creating. Because if you can imagine, when I get to this point where the second join will be, this join may be smaller than 10mm or bigger than 10mm. So I don't want that to the top because it would look kind of off-putting. It would look not right with an unequal gap at the position you're looking down on. So hopefully that makes sense. So we'll weld these now and you will understand what I'm talking about in more detail when we get to that stage. So we'll clamp these to the bench now and we'll get rocking here. Okay, so I've went ahead here and I have cut these to give me a gap of 10mm. So I'll just measure that, but first I'm going to cable tie them together so they're nice and tight to create a butt joint. So that's one side. Okay, so that's it, ready to be welded. So the welder set at TIG welder set at 60 amps. And we have the mesh running through to this piece of plyboard. Just making sure it's level. With the clamps tight and the heatsink in position. Okay, so that's it done. We'll turn it over the body and weld the back of it. Okay, that's perfect. So I'll do the other one off camera. Okay, so there we go. So if I get the verniers now, and I measure in between the two where the weld is, it's measuring, let me see if I move this open. It might be less than 10mm now because it's pulled in. So 9.6 So that's good enough because these ones are actually, oh no, sorry, the verniers are off. Probably set them. 9.78 in between where the weld is. If I go to this one, 9.63. So that's really good. 0.1 of a mil out. So we'll move on to the next stage here. Okay, so I decided to call an end to this part of the video, to this part of the project. So this is video part 5.1. I might complete this project, these videos, in another maybe 3 to 4 sections. So what I'm going to do here, right, is I'm going to split part 5 into hopefully 3 sections. So this is 5.1. Part 5.2 will follow very soon, along with video part 5.3. So if you haven't done already, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 came of the building of the compressor vessel itself. So that was tumbling the vessel, that was attaching the motors and the pumps to the platforms, making these fancy stainless tensioners to adjust the belts, to move the motor out and in. And also, I think it was part 3, involved the plumbing of the pumps to the vessel and attaching all accessories and all electrical work. So part 5 I didn't think was going to be so heavily detailed, but I think it's important that I cover all this detail because some people will be interested in it. So there has been 24, I think, live streams of the manufacturing of the garage already. So me being me, I decided to go overboard on these guards and make them to this nice, unique shape. And also having them with that mirror finish, that mirror effect, the reflection. So rather than having a now flat finish and now flat stainless, I thought it would be nice just to have it similar to other projects that I have built in the garage here. So this project, this compressor was built specifically for the garage here and for big tasks such as sandblasting, other projects, project cars and things. So the output is 50 CFM, but I'm not going to go any further than that. I just thought I'd mention that before I wrap this video up. So as I say, there's 24 live streams on my channel of this compressor, well, the guards, shall I say, the guards, the making of the guards. This video, 5.1, has covered live streams right up to part 8. So in the next video, live stream part 9 will continue on. So the live streams have more detail in them, but they're too long to, there's too much video and going on here to include everything. So I had to cut everything down for these videos. So that's it. I think I've mentioned everything about the guards themselves. So hopefully you have enjoyed this compressor beast build. If you want to see other projects like this one, other interesting projects, or if you want to see this project evolve, do subscribe and hit the post notifications bell to see all the latest from my channel. Also, if you haven't done already, there are loads of interesting projects that I have already uploaded to the channel. So if you haven't seen those, do get a look. They are quite interesting too. So here is a project that I will be completing very soon. When I say completing, I have it completed. I just need to upload it. So some of these interesting projects, these ones that will be appearing very soon, will be the e-bike build. So that's a one-of-a-kind e-bike. The Green Beast, I call it. The Second project will be the large aperture. So that aperture is my own design. It's unique worldwide. It's got its own mechanism, not like other apertures, the thousands of apertures across YouTube, or even apertures itself, the way it works. My aperture is designed completely different to be different. The next project I want to just briefly mention before wrapping up here is the smart glove that I've created to monitor the hand joints. So that's another project I will be completing throughout live streams, because the live streams you can see the amount of effort goes into things compared to your ordinary video here. So yeah, a lot of work to cover. Okay, so I wasn't going to mention this, but I'm just going to mention it anyway. So in video live stream part, I think it was 21, there was quite a number of people, individuals, coming onto the live stream chat and trying to put me in bad light. So basically, what they were doing is trying to run me into the ground by giving me negative comments. So hateful comments. Some of the comments actually wishing death upon me for some strange reason. And others call me clown, and all this nonsense, and I don't know what I'm doing. Clearly, if you look at my YouTube channel, that's the problem. So these people are clearly hurt by me uploading my projects being unique, very unique, and that's the problem. They feel a threat. They feel I am a threat to them. And, well, I don't know. They're very childish, and I'm best to just ignore them, I know. But I think it's important just to point out some of these people online nowadays try and run people down into the ground for doing something different and basically putting themselves out there. So that one is just something I just have to move on with and forget about and just keep doing what I'm doing. I know that and there's been a lot of people coming through, genuine people, that have told me to just ignore them, which I'm going to do, of course. But as I say, hateful people, very envious, very jealous, because they have nothing going on in their own lives. So, as previously stated, such projects that are seen on my channel are not seen elsewhere, and that's the problem. That's why they get so hurt. And I've never ever spoke up like this, but the reason I'm speaking up now is because of the way that these people act towards me. So there's a significant amount of time, effort and attention invested into all these projects. So these are achievements I have pursued since a very young age while working independently. So watch this space, it's only beginning to get more exciting. To the haters, to the envious, and to the jealous, goodbye. And I hope you enjoy all my project videos as much as I enjoy them. Thank you and goodbye to the genuine, to you of course, and to the haters, goodbye.